Have you ever heard of a poet whose verses have echoed through centuries? Or a mathematician whose work laid the groundwork for modern algebra? What if I told you they were the same person? Today, we're diving into the extraordinary life of Omar Khayyam, true Renaissance man who lived long before the Renaissance even began, who's a philosopher, an astronomer, a physician, and a poet, whose words on life, love, and the universe continued to captivate us 1,000 years later. So, who was the man behind the famous Rubaiyat? Let's unravel the story of this Persian polymath. Omar Khayyam was born in Nishapur, a thriving cultural hub in Persia, now modern-day Iran, around the year 1048. His full name was Ghiyath al-Din Balfath Umar ibn Ibrahim al-Nishaburi al-Khayyami. That's a mouthful, isn't it? The name Khayyam actually means tent maker in Persian, suggesting his father or ancestors were in that trade. But young Omar was destined for a different path. From an early age, he showed a brilliant mind and an insatiable curiosity for the world around him. He received the best education available, studying philosophy, mathematics, science, under the greatest scholars of his time. He wasn't just a student, he was a prodigy. Imagine being so smart that by your early 20s, you're already writing groundbreaking treatises that would be studied for centuries. That was Omar Khayyam. He quickly gained a reputation as one of the most brilliant thinkers of his generation, a reputation that would soon attract the attention of the most powerful people in the land. In his mid-20s, Khayyam's journey took him to Samarkand, another great center of learning. It was here that he began his most significant work in mathematics. He wrote a revolutionary treatise on algebra, titled Treatise on Demonstration of Problems of Algebra. This wasn't just another math book. In it, Khayyam provided a systematic method for solving cubic equations, those tricky equations with an x-cubed term. He did this by using geometry, finding the intersection points of conic sections like circles and parabolas. It was a monumental achievement, a leap forward in algebra that wouldn't be surpassed for another 500 years in Europe. He classified equations, explored the relationship between algebra and geometry, and laid the foundation for what would later become algebraic geometry. So next time you're struggling with an algebra problem, you can thank or maybe blame Omar Khayyam for pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. But Khayyam's genius wasn't confined to mathematics. His growing fame caught the eye of the Seljuk Sultan Malik Shah. In 1073, the Sultan invited Khayyam to the new capital, Isfahan, to establish and run an astronomical observatory. This was a massive undertaking, like being asked to lead NASA today. Khayyam and his team of scientists were given a critical mission: to reform the Persian calendar. The existing calendar had become inaccurate, drifting out of sync with the seasons. For nearly 2 decades, Khayyam meticulously observed the stars and planets. The result was the Jalali calendar, named after the Sultan.
How accurate was it? Incredibly so.
The Jalali calendar calculated the length of a year as 365.2 for 2 days. Modern science calculates it as 365.24 to 19 days. This calendar is so precise that it's actually more accurate than the Gregorian calendar we use today, which needs a leap day every 4 years. The Jalali calendar is still used in Iran and Afghanistan, a testament to Khayyam's astronomical genius. While Khayyam was busy mapping the stars and solving equations, he was also a deep philosophical thinker. He engaged with the works of the great Greek philosopher Aristotle and the Islamic philosopher Avicenna. Khayyam was known for his sharp, questioning mind. He sometimes put him at odds with more dogmatic religious figures of his time. He wrestled with the seeming contradictions between a benevolent creator and the suffering and impermanence of life. He questioned everything, and this profound skepticism and philosophical inquiry would become the very soul of his poetry. He examined them, tested them, and formed his own understanding of the universe. This intellectual courage is a key part of his legacy. Now let's talk about what Omar Khayyam is most famous for in the Western world: his poetry. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. A rubaiyat is a 4-line poem, a quatrain, and it's through these short, powerful verses that Khayyam's voice truly sings across the ages. But here's a fascinating twist. In his own lifetime, Khayyam was known primarily as a scientist and philosopher, not a poet. The collection of poems we know as the Rubaiyat was compiled long after his death. In fact, scholars debate how many of the hundreds of quatrains attributed to him were actually written by him. It seems that over time, many anonymous verses with a similar theme and style were added to his collection. But it doesn't really matter. The spirit of the Rubaiyat is undeniably Khayyam's. The themes of the Rubaiyat are timeless. They speak of the fleeting nature of life, the inevitability of death, and the importance of living in the present moment. Carpe diem, or seize the day, is a central message. Khayyam often uses the imagery of wine not necessarily to promote drinking, but as a metaphor for the intoxicating beauty of life and the spiritual joy of living in the now. His verses are a call to find pleasure in simple things: a loaf of bread, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and the company of a loved one, because life is short, and the universe is a mystery we may never solve. One of his most famous quatrains, in the popular translation by Edward Fitzgerald, goes the moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, or all thy tears wash out a word of it. It's a powerful reflection on fate and the unstoppable passage of time. For centuries, Khayyam's poetry was beloved in the Persian-speaking world. But it was an English writer named Edward Fitzgerald who introduced him to the West in 1859. Fitzgerald published a very free, very beautiful translation of a selection of the quatrains. At first, the book was a complete flop. It sat unnoticed in bookshops. But it was eventually discovered by influential Victorian poets and artists, and its popularity exploded. It became one of the most widely read books of poetry in the English language. Fitzgerald's version captured the Victorian imagination with its blend of hedonism, skepticism, and romantic melancholy. It was exotic, philosophical, and deeply human. This translation made Omar Khayyam a household name in Europe and America, cementing his legacy as a world poet. After his patron, Sultan Malik Shah, died, the political climate in Persia changed. Funding for the observatory dried up, and a more conservative religious atmosphere took hold. Khayyam's questioning nature and philosophical views were viewed with suspicion by some. He eventually left Isfahan and returned to his hometown of Nishapur. It's said that in his later years he lived a more secluded life, teaching a small group of students and continuing his private studies. He passed away around the year 1131, in his early 80s, a remarkable age for that era. There's a story told by one of his students that on the day he died, Khayyam was reading a book of philosophy. He placed a golden toothpick to mark his page, stood up, prayed, and peacefully passed away. A quiet end for a man whose mind had journeyed to the furthest reaches of the cosmos and the deepest questions of the human heart. So, what is the enduring legacy of Omar Khayyam, who was a man of two worlds? The world of poetry, passion, and philosophy, where he contemplated the meaning of our brief existence. He shows us that these two worlds are not separate. A scientific mind can also be a poetic soul. A love for reason and evidence can coexist with a deep appreciation for beauty and mystery. Omar Khayyam teaches us to question, to explore, to think critically, but also to cherish the moment, to find joy in the here and now, and to embrace the beautiful, fleeting, and mysterious journey of life. He was truly a giant of human intellect and spirit, a voice of reason and wonder that still speaks to us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the life of the incredible Omar Khayyam. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of history's greatest minds. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What's your favorite verse from the Rubaiyat? Till next time, keep questioning and keep exploring.